caused absolute uproar. And the Unite Union have been knocked about by Labour. They've been told that they can't participate anymore. And I think if you want to really upset the government of millionaires, then shut down their infrastructure and show them that actually it's Labour that generates wealth and not wealthy people that generate wealth. They just take the wealth off them. So yeah, tanker drivers' wages are pretty good, but they do a dangerous and hard job that often leads to really unsociable hours. And everybody absolutely has a right to strike. I was speaking to a civil servant on the last strike, on the November 30th strike, sorry, and he was earning an extortionate amount of money. As a socialist, do I think that's fair? Probably not. But actually, they work very hard. He's worked into his position, and that's the society we live in. But if everybody had a decent wage, then that wouldn't be a problem. I don't like the argument that because someone is well paid, that everyone else should feel bad. Everyone else should just get paid well enough to live comfortably and enjoy their lives.
Yeah. The Left Front Party in France, their head, Mélenchon, one of their policies was that they would cap wages at, I believe it was €360,000. Yeah. Would that be something that your party would consider, putting in a wage cap?
Well, I think it would eventually be part of the transitional demands. It's as you look at the situation that you're within, then you have to start assessing this. Do I think anybody does a job that deserves 350,000 a year plus? No. I don't think there's anybody who deserves to have that amount of money. When there's people who are poor, starving, dying, and living on the breadline, I don't think anybody does a job that deserves that amount of money. When you see doctors who are traditionally really, really particularly well paid, salaries coming down, nurses who work long hours, have just had their pensions completely slashed, and now getting paid less than your average bank teller, that's unfair. 350,000 is a ridiculous amount of money. Sooner or later, you run out of things to spend it on, except for things that you don't necessarily need. And it's just not acceptable to take that money. I mean, the industry that tends to pay that kind of salary is generally an industry that is causing cost to other people anyway, and the money taken out of that is actually money that should be going back into creating a fairer society.
So you say that bankers, they earn. What about sports stars? Would you say that their wages should be capped as well?
Well, I think the interesting argument with sports stars is that they can only work for so long, so they have to earn their entire career within the first sort of 10 working years of their life. And I can kind of see that as an argument, but at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily blame the individual sports person themselves. It's the industry that they're within that has problems within it. When you see billionaires buying and selling off clubs that people have supported their entire life as if they're just toys, they don't mean anything to these chair people, yet they brandish them like it's an extra Ferrari in their drive. I don't think that's doing any good for football. And when you see clubs like Glasgow Rangers struggling, when they've got such a massive tradition and mean so much to so many people, and there's nothing they can do about it because it's turned into an industry with ridiculous amounts of money attached to it, where everybody is a corporate logo and it's stopped being about the sport. I mean, I play sport and I love going down and watching sport, but it's got to be such a show that you miss out on actually watching the game. So I now tend to actually go watch like the Sunday rugby leagues and watch people playing rugby rather than the spectacle.
Yeah.
We're only talking about the cut of wages, and what do you make of everything becoming more expensive? So living's becoming more expensive with wages being less.
Well, I think this is just another attempt. With like the VAT rise and the increase in the cost of living, it's another attempt to make the people at the bottom pay for something. Incrementally, if you have less money, then these increases hit you a lot harder. So it's just being passed down to the poorest in society to pay for everything. And we're being told to cut back while everybody else gets richer. And if anything, it's kind of a sign that post-privatisation from Thatcher, where they started selling off industry, we don't have the money to compete with Germany and France anymore because we don't have any industry that's not privatised. The privatised industry are all on their knees, and they should be. The bankers have gambled a lot of money away, and now they're trying to sort of maintain their bonuses and arguing in Parliament to keep these ridiculous bonuses. saying, but I worked really hard. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You did not work any harder than a bloke who works the bins or a woman who works the bins. You didn't earn that money at all, you ridiculous person. They're trying to pass on the cost of living as a sort of way to keep people compliant, I believe. And I think actually it's a big threat as well. Because generally speaking, if the working class are fairly comfortable and this sort of thing comes up, they're much more able to kick off. Whereas now we're hearing repeatedly in the street that people are working 40 hours plus. They're so exhausted by the end of the day from trying to figure out how they're going to afford bread. And you hear stories hit the national newspapers about mothers doing without food to feed their kids. I think any society that allows that needs radical reform instantly, especially when you've got politicians earning ridiculous salaries again, and then going on to take private consultation jobs for oil companies and international conglomerates, which just works out really neatly for them. It's absolutely sickening. And again, the Socialist Party had, well, I've had a few MPs over the years, but the most sort of prominent in terms of that argument is Dave Nellist, who refused to take anything above a skilled worker's wage in his area, because that's all he was.
Andy Smith, pleasure speaking to you. And remember that elections are tomorrow, so voting starts at 7 a.m. and ends at 10 p.m. I've got that right, that's correct.
Yep.
Well, we're just going to end the show now with Highlight of the Week. And Jack, what's your highlight of the week?
It's tonight, 7:45, Chelsea against Newcastle. Massive game at Stamford Bridge. If Newcastle win, we go 4 points ahead of Chelsea.
Not very biased there, Jack.
I'm hoping that we'll come through. That it's not going to be a disaster like it was against Wigan.
But let me just ask you this, though, as a Newcastle fan, how would you feel if you finished fourth, but Chelsea won the Champions League and they finished outside the top four?
To be honest, I think if we did finish fourth and Chelsea won the Champions League, I think that would be unfair, because when Liverpool won the Champions League and finished fifth and Everton finished fourth, they both went into the Champions League. So I don't see why suddenly the rules have changed so that
I think
we can't go in.
It's because of that mix-up, UEFA decided to change the rules.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, actually. I think it is quite unfair.
Because it's over 38 games, the Premier League. The
Yeah.
Champions League is over 10.
If that. So, Tom, what's your
My highlight of the week, a brand new film that's coming out today, and it's called American Pie: The Reunion. And if it's like the first few films, it will be a classic.
on the first three?
On the first
Let's
three.
get specific.
Yeah. 4, 5 and 6 didn't particularly hit the mark. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I think apparently the script's quite a good script, so should be as good as the first film.
Well, fingers crossed. They've got the same producer and the same director
Same
back.
cast
The
as
same
well.
guy.
So Dale, what's your highlight of the week to end it?
Well, I was going to go with a football one, but as Jack's done one, I might have to go cricket here. It is Yorkshire Leicestershire, a big game in Division 2. Yorkshire just came down from Division 1. Leicestershire, after a disastrous season last season, won one game. Hopefully, they'll improve, but they will be without Matthew Hoggard, who's broke his finger, and he'll be out for a month, I think.
Right, well, thank you for listening to Blah De Blah with me, Tom Feeney.
Me, Dale Harris.
And me, Jack Elliott.
Thank you for listening to Blah.
Dean.
Blah.
Remember to follow Blah De Blah on Twitter, that's at the Blah De Blah. And follow me, Thomas Feeney, that's at THOMSAFEAHENY.
And at Dale Harris, 1991.
At Jack Elliott, 1993.
Thank you for listening to Blah De Blah.